Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley. Welcome back to Steelers Almighty. We are doing our draft report card. 2025 draft is complete. We've had some time to actually digest everything, what we've thought about it. We did 3 days, live coverage on the lives as far as it was concerned, and it was a boatload of fun. We had a ton of people in there having a lot of fun, but now it's time to get down to the nitty gritty of it. What do we think about the Steelers draft of 2025? We're going to break each pick down, strengths, weaknesses, give you a grade on each and overall grade on what I think the Steelers did. So appreciate everybody, man. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, get into those comments like you guys always do, and also hit that notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Let's get into this, man. So the first pick, Steelers had number 21. There was a ton of speculation on number one, who they would pick, if they would move up, they would move back. A lot of people thinking they were going to try to go get a quarterback, maybe move up for Shedeur Sanders. None of that happened. At the very beginning of the process, very beginning of the offseason, me, just like a lot of people said, the Steelers have to get younger, more athletic, bigger on the defensive line. Ton of speculation happened, rumor mills all over the place. But at the end of the day, the Steelers went back to what we all knew that they needed was a defensive tackle. At number 21, they took Derrick Harmon. First off, let me just start off by saying my condolences to Derrick Harmon. I mean, can you imagine you get drafted the biggest day of your life, and then up to that point anyway, and then hours later, your mother dies? I can't even imagine what that's like. But condolences out to him and his family. But I have a feeling we've gotten a football player that's going to have a chip on his shoulder and be playing every down for his mother. I just have that feeling. Forget the fact that he's ultra talented, because he is. He does a lot of things well. Let's kind of break that down. He's big, strong. He's got long arms. He sheds blocks extremely well. He's also versatile, and that's key. You know how Cam Hayward can play all over the line in our 3-4. He can play over the nose. He's mainly a defensive end. He can definitely play the 3 technique. He can play the 4-eye. He can do a lot of different things. That's Derrick Harmon is in that same mold, just younger. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be Cam Hayward, but I'm just telling you that he's versatile like Cam Hayward, and there's a difference. So I like that. Like I mentioned before, he sheds blocks, no other. The one thing about him is that he is not just a run stuffer who can take on double teams, which he can do. He led the FBS last year in interior line as far as pressures on the quarterback. Let it. Now, I get it. Those don't equal sacks, but if you're getting pressure, there's a lot of different factors that go into actually getting a sack. It's not just, hey, I beat my man. Okay, I'm at the quarterback. I get a sack. That's not how it works. But if he's consistently getting pressure, that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers need. That's what they lacked last year outside of Cam Hayward. Now they've got somebody that can help, not only help him, help Cam, but also help TJ as well, help the whole entire line. It's just a huge, huge pickup. He'll be good against the run. He'll be good in the passing game. Steelers found themselves a D tackle, hopefully for the next decade. Some of his weaknesses, look, the injury history that came up at the end, that's a concern. I mean, torn labrum, partially torn rotator cuff. I mean, those things are going to require surgery. I don't think he's getting the surgery before the season. Word has it is that this injury, he played 8 full football games with this injury. So if he's doing that, I'm not saying he's not compromised somewhat, but I think he's doing pretty well. And if he can get through this season, then he can have the surgery after that. So be it. But as of right now, yeah, those are a concern, but I don't think they're too big of a concern. And the Steelers took him. Don't get me wrong. We've done it in the past, and guys end up getting hurt immediately. Knock on wood. I don't think that's going to happen with our man, Derrick Harmon. But the injuries have to have a little bit of concern. There's also some concern as far as his hip bend. He doesn't necessarily drive through tackles. He kind of grabs guys and spins them down. It's okay. NFL running backs can a lot of times get off of that. Shouldn't say usually. A lot of times get off of that. He's going to have to just learn how to run through tackles versus stopping on immediate impact. But he's a big, strong guy, willing to learn. I don't suspect that being a problem. This grade for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I gave it an A. Exactly what they needed to be able, again, stop the run and get after the quarterback from the defensive line position, Derrick Harmon. A lot of people liked him higher than Kenneth Grant. I wasn't one of those, but Grant wasn't there, and I told y'all I didn't think he was going to be there. We got Derrick Harmon. I love the pick. Give it an A. Now, moving on to the second pick, which happened to be in the third round, Kaleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa, 6'1", 225. Here's the thing. I came out and I didn't like the pick initially. I didn't. I'm like, there's guys that I believe that were better that hadn't been drafted yet that the Pittsburgh Steelers could have gotten. Now, before you guys go off the deep end, I understand that he fits the system. He is a pure zone running phenom. Inside, outside, doesn't matter. That's what he does well, and it fits our system. The reason I didn't like the pick is because while he does fit this system, who's to say that Arthur Smith is even going to be the offensive coordinator in 2026? Part of coaching is you draft the best you can, and then you use things to fit their style, what they do best. Now, that's one of the things Arthur Smith didn't do with Najee Harris. Najee Harris was not a good running back when it came to zone reading, to zone offensive play. He just wasn't good at that. That's not his thing. He's a downhill runner. And Arthur Smith kept calling inside zones, kept calling outside zones, kept calling toss plays with Najee, and that just wasn't his thing. But you take a Kaleb Johnson, and we're like, okay, he fits that. Yes, he does. But my whole point was, don't take a guy that fits your scheme as an offensive coordinator because you don't know how long he's going to be there. Just take the best available guy. Having said all of that, Kaleb Johnson is an outstanding football player. And I don't want that to get lost. So I like Kaleb Johnson as a player. I just happen to think there were other players that were better. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with him. I like him as a runner. Some of his strengths, again, he's an outstanding fit for what we do now. He's a patient runner. Now, a lot of people try to say that, oh, he's Le'Veon Bell. And I'm like, hold on a second. And we'll get to some of the shortcomings. Let's not compare him to Le'Veon Bell just yet, people. Maybe running style, if that's what you want to say, because he's patient. Okay, fine. But he's not Le'Veon Bell. And he doesn't have to be Le'Veon Bell, to be effective. Another thing that he can do is that when he gets to second level defenders, he can also make those guys miss. He can break those tackles. That's one of the things Kaleb Johnson does. Now, he's not a home run hitter. He's a more fluid runner than Najee Harris, but he's not a home run speed demon guy. So I don't want to think that, but he's not slow either. He's not a slow individual. He's terrible. Let's just call it what it is. He's not good in the passing game. That's why I said pump the brakes on Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell was phenomenal. Picking up the blitz, catching out of the backfield, phenomenal at that. Kaleb Johnson's not that. Now, he wasn't asked to do that an awful lot at Iowa, so that's not his fault. Can he get better at it? Yes. He's going to need to get better at it, but as of right now, he doesn't do those things well, doesn't catch it well, doesn't pick up the blitz well, but I think his heart, it might be there. I just think he needs somebody to say, okay, this is how it's done. This is what you do, and if he can pick those things up and do it well, he's going to be a big time running back in the National Football League, but he's got to learn to do those things. Like I said, he doesn't have game breaking speed, but he's not a slow running back. And that's okay with me. That's okay. He's not a 4.8 guy or anything like that. He ran a 4.57. Again, that's in shorts, but you put on the tape, you don't see him getting walked down by that many people either. So Kaleb Johnson, I like him. Give me a B on the draft grade. I like what he brings to the table. He's a good player. Again, I just thought there were other guys that hadn't been drafted that we could have taken. So let's move on, people. Now with our third pick, that happened to be in the fourth round, I'm not going to hide my disappointment. Look, Jack Sawyer is a good football player. 6'4", 260 out of Ohio State. He's a good football player. I don't understand the Steelers' rationale in picking this. I really don't. Now, there's some out there that said, Big B, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. He's going to be a depth piece. Well, he's the fourth outside linebacker. And yeah, they rotate him, but are you wanting to rotate him that much and have TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith off the field that much for Jack Sawyer to get in? No. So in the fourth round, we all know that we need cornerback help. There were corners that were available, and the Steelers didn't take them. They took Jack Sawyer. I just didn't understand the pick. That's all. I didn't understand it. I know he's incredibly strong, just in general. He's great against the run. He is outstanding against the run. Those are some of the traits that he has. Sets an edge, has a mean streak, and that motor of Jack Sawyer, it never stops. It never, ever stops. However, his athletic limitations, it's a hindrance. For instance, if we play him at outside linebacker, which we're going to do, he's not athletic enough to do those kinds of things, like drop in coverage. That's not his thing, okay? He's not going to be able to do that. And to be able to use athletic traits like quick twitch to get around these tackles, rushing the passer, that's not his thing, man. He's not going to be able to do that. Now, again, against the run, he'll be good. But TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith didn't get paid the money that they got paid, and TJ about to get paid because he's good against the run. It's because he gets after the quarterback. He wrecks football games by getting after the quarterback. That's why they get paid. And Jack Sawyer, you could say, well, and I even heard this, he's kind of like Aaron Smith or Brent Kiesel. And I'm like, hold on a second. Those guys are 25, 30 pounds heavier than he is. So if they're going to do that and move him inside in our 3-4 as a defensive end, okay, you can, but he's going to have to put on the weight. I go, because at 260, you can't play a 4-eye in the National Football League. You're going to get crushed. That is too little. I'm sorry. It's too little. And so I just didn't understand the pick. Again, it's not anything against him. I think he's a fine football player, but when you're giving out draft grades, you have to grade what does he bring to the table based on what we're asking him to do and what was also available that you needed. So I think he's a fine player. I just didn't understand it. I get it. He'll play some special teams. I get it. He's going to be in the rotation. I understand that. But we had an opportunity to get some really good cornerbacks, and we didn't. So I graded this a C-. Not anything against him as a football player other than the limitations that he has based on what we're going to ask him to do. I don't see the fit. I really don't. But here's the one thing, and you guys know me. I would love for him to prove me wrong. I want him to prove me wrong. And the only reason that I do is because if he does, that means he's playing outstanding football for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So by all means, Jack Sawyer, go prove me wrong. I couldn't scream it enough. Make me out to be dead wrong, and that means you're playing outstanding football. That's all I'll say about it. So hopefully that happens. Let's move on. So our fourth pick in the fifth round, it was pick number, what was it? I can't remember, but it's Yahya. And I think his name is Yahya Black. Fourth pick in the fifth round. We traded back 9 spots to pick up a 7th for this pick. I think it's the steal of the draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this is outstanding. Again, it addresses nose tackle. We needed it. He's 6'6", 336. He strong at the point of attack. Just eats double teams. Just absolutely eats double teams. If you try to single block him, he's knocking you in the backfield. He doesn't give an inch on a double team, and he damn sure doesn't give one an inch when he's being single blocked. Now I get it. He's not going to give us a ton in as a pass rush. I know we saw some highlights of him doing that, but that's not his thing. He's not going to give us a lot in a pass rush. But taking somebody in the 5th round to be a 2-down lineman, and not out there on passing situations, I'll accept that because the Pittsburgh Steelers need that. They need a guy that hey, they're running the football. These are run downs. Go stop the run. Go help us stop the run. We needed that. And he fits the bill because long arms, he sheds blocks well. And when you try to single block him, he just extends and discards. But he doesn't bring, like I said, he's not super athletic as far as running down the line of scrimmage, making tackles or anything like that. He can get reached, on outside zones or even inside zones. He's got to make sure that he uses his technique there so he doesn't get reached. But if he learns that and can be what we need, just a stout in the middle, I think it's the steal of the draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I absolutely love this pick. Like I said, they moved back 9 spots. He was still there. We needed a big guy. We got a big guy. Yeah, I like what Yahya brings to the table, man. Just a physical presence. Sometimes he's a little high, but you can be taught. That's the whole thing, man, is just be coachable. And I believe that he's coachable. He's where he got picked for what we needed. I'll say it again. I think he's a steal of the draft. I absolutely believe that he is the steal of the draft. So, what did I grade this one? I graded it an A because, again, you're getting good value later in the draft. Couldn't be happier for what we got out of our man Yahya Black, man. Couldn't be happier. Moving on. So our 5th pick, 6th round. A lot of people thought this guy would go in the 3rd, no later than the 4th. We get him in the 6th. Will Howard, quarterback, Ohio State / Kansas State. Look, here's the things about Will Howard. First off, let's talk about him, where he got drafted. The value. We just talked about Yahya Black's value. This might even be more. A 3rd or a 4th rounder you get in the 6th round, a ton of value for a guy of his stature. So I like that aspect of it. He's big. He's 6'4", 236, and he can legitimately move. He is not a statue back there. Now, I'm not saying he's a 4'5" guy or anything like that, but 4'8", that's in his range. That's in his wheelhouse. He can move a little bit. He can manipulate the pocket when he needs to manipulate the pocket. That's one of the things because he is big and he's got some athleticism. When things break down, on off-balance throws, he can be accurate when plays break down. So I like that aspect for him. One of the things that he also did, he elevated everything in the postseason. What do you mean, Big B? Well, he elevated what he did, in the postseason for Ohio State. He played the regular season, and when the postseason came around, Will Howard got better. That competitive fire just chalked up a little bit more, and he got better. I like the aspect of Will Howard's game is that he also did it at Kansas State. Kansas State in 2022 won the Big 12 title. He ramped up what he was doing and had an outstanding game in that game as well. So, competition, and when the lights are the brightest, Will Howard steps up. Now, here's some of the things that he doesn't do. He's a little stiff in the pocket, a little mechanical. But again, mechanics, you can be taught out of that. Okay, so let's not hold all that against you. They can teach you out of that. Now, his arm strength, outside the numbers, it's not the greatest. He anticipates well and understands how to get the ball out of his hands, but his arm strength, outside the numbers, you're on the left hash and you're throwing to the right hash outside the number, or throwing to the right outside the numbers, it could be a problem. So I'm not saying he has a weak arm or anything like that. I'm just saying it's not an elite arm. He can make all the throws. But that could be a problem. And it's nitpicking that he only looks at half the field, but I think that part comes from the type of offenses that he's been in. The schematics of it all in college. Hey, man, look to your right. Here's the 1-2 to the right. You don't see it. Get out of there and run. Or he stays on those 2 targets to try to get him open. I think in the National Football League, I think he's going to be taught. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you do something. I just don't think, I mean, at the college level, first of all, you don't always have to do that. Guys can usually get open, especially when he's at Ohio State. I mean, those guys are getting open. I mean, he's got NFL caliber receivers. Those guys are getting open. So you don't always have to come off your first and second read. Um, the one thing, again, as far as his outstanding mechanics and his delivery, he's got that. Mechanical in the pocket, but good mechanics while he's in the pocket, if that makes sense. I like this pick. Like I said, the value that he brings to the table. I like it. I like his poise. I like his accuracy. I wasn't sold on him being a second round pick. I thought the fourth round would have been a good spot for him, but he went in the sixth. Okay, that's good for us. I thought we needed him. He can be a solid backup this year, and then we'll see what happens. We will absolutely see what happens. But I think he has a future in the National Football League. I graded this a B plus for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Moving on. Our sixth pick, our first one in the seventh round. Carson Bruener, linebacker out of Washington, 6'1, 227. Look, he is an incredible tackler. Very, very high football IQ. Some of the things that I saw about him is he understands and can dissect plays early, and then he can use that to be able to get where he needs to go to make tackles, if that makes sense. So he can diagnose what's going on, and then he takes off using the proper angle to be able to get there because it covers up for his lack of athleticism. And that's one of the things. Look, he's not the best athlete out there. Now, he's a tackling machine. There is no question about that. But he's also on the smaller side. I mentioned 6'1", 227 for an inside linebacker. That's not very big. And he's not the greatest athletically. He's not that good in coverage. But you know what he is? An outstanding player as far as special teams. So if he can make this squad, I think it's going to be through special teams. And obviously being a backup, hopefully they can put a little bit of weight on him. But I wouldn't be counting on him as far as an inside linebacker. Now, anything can happen. You know, we've been surprised before by guys that we thought were too small, too slow, didn't have the athleticism, and all of a sudden they have Hall of Fame careers. We've seen all that. Now, I'm not predicting something like that, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen, doesn't mean that he can't play. But from the outside looking in, based on his tape and what we know about him, special teams is going to be the way to go. I graded this one a C. Last pick, Pittsburgh Steelers, 229, Donte Kent. I like Donte Kent. A lot of people thought, maybe it's too late for a DB. Now, I'm okay with it. The one question that I had, I mean, he was a 3-time All-MAC conference guy. I thought, you know what? After being All-Conference 2 times, why wouldn't you transfer, to maybe a bigger, more high-profile school and see if you can do the same thing there? But I have to commend him for being loyal to the coaches that recruited him, being loyal to his teammates, his school, and there is something to be said about being comfortable too. A lot of guys jump in the transfer portal these days and they back and forth and here and there all over the place. Sometimes guys are like, you know what? I'm comfortable where I am. I don't need to go anywhere else. And there's something to be said for that. So kudos to Mr. Kent there. Having said that, outstanding athleticism, 4'3", 840, 38-inch vertical. Those are some of the things that he brings to the table. He's got outstanding burst when breaking on routes. Like when he finally sees what's going on, he's outstanding. Now, one of the problems is that he doesn't always recognize the routes right away. I don't think it has anything to do with film study. Sometimes you don't process the information fast enough. And I think that's part of it. Now, don't get me saying that, oh, you think he's dumb. No, that's not what I said. All I said was sometimes you don't process the information fast enough. He sees the routes and maybe he's just okay. And that's another thing. He doesn't trust his eyes. I think that's why his interception numbers were down. He only had 2 interceptions. I think it's a combination of a lot of teams stayed away from him, but also, hey, I see it. I don't necessarily react. Oh, okay, now they're going to throw the ball. I'll react late. He's got to trust his eyes a little bit more to be successful. But with that kind of athleticism that he brings to the table, you know what I'm going to say? Special teams is the way to go for that young man if he's going to make the team. I graded it a B. Now, overall, for what the Steelers did, look. I thought everybody they're not able to get and accomplish everything that they want in the draft. That doesn't usually happen. From time to time, you see it. The Steelers didn't hear. They didn't get an offensive lineman. They took a cornerback very late, so they didn't take a wide receiver. Not that they necessarily needed a wide receiver, but, certain things that they just did not address. Okay. But all in all, I thought this was a pretty good draft. It's not excellent. Didn't give it an A, but I did give it a B plus. I thought this was a good draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a big boy draft, and they got big people. And they needed some big people on that defensive line. They needed big people. They went out and got big people that fill needs, and I'm okay with it. I really am. I thought I would grade this a little bit harder, but you take a little time, you dig a little deeper, and you're like, you know what? This wasn't bad. And it wasn't. This was not a bad. Wasn't spectacular, but this is a good draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm happy with what they did. Again, there's only one pick that I didn't like, still don't like it, and you're not going to be able to get me off of it. But I already mentioned, I hope he proves me wrong. I absolutely hope he proves me wrong. That means he's playing well. And if he's playing well, that means the Pittsburgh Steelers more than likely are playing well. So I'll take it. I'll take it. So appreciate everybody being in here, man. Thank you guys again, as always. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, dive into those comments, and hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. We'll talk to you guys soon, man, and aloha.